Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Busy weekend around the NFL. There are still 8 vacancies left as far as head coaching jobs are concerned. 8 in the playoff picture as well. We'll discuss all of that with you here on today's show. But we begin with the heartbreaking news over the weekend of the passing of former Cardinals safety Kwamie Lassiter. Now, MJI arrived here in the Valley towards the end of Lassiter's career. His final season with the Cardinals was 2002. But he was still active with the organization well after his playing days. He was part of the Cardinals radio coverage for a season or two, and certainly devastated all Cardinal fans, Cardinal personnel that knew and played with Kwamie Lassiter, because it is stunning on Sunday afternoon getting that news.
Yeah, you know, you hear the news and you're thinking, wow, he's got a family and he still lived here in the Valley and only 49 years old. According to people that were in touch with his family, he was working out. Obviously, he still looks like he still played. But one thing about Kwamie, he always played with a chip on his shoulder, and that's what made him so good. And you're going to see some of the highlights. And you look at that San Diego Chargers game. I could say San Diego Chargers game. The 4 interceptions, and then the fact that, you know, he was wanting a new contract, but you know, he was just a guy, always had a smile on his face. You know, he was doing a podcast. He did a little bit of radio. But anytime you're able to see him, you know, in the public, always cordial. I ran into him a few times when he was coming here to pick up tickets. So, yeah, just sad news, and you feel for his family. And it just goes to show you that, I mean, you just never know. 49 years old, he was on the treadmill working out, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to survive.
You mentioned the chip on his shoulder, an undrafted rookie free agent, 10 seasons in the NFL, 8 with the Cardinals. Team president Michael Bidwell released the statement over the weekend. In part, it read, "We were all devastated to learn of Kwamie's passing today, and our hearts go out to all of his family and friends. Kwamie came to the Cardinals as an undrafted rookie free agent. He not only became a key contributor to our team for 8 seasons, but continued to make an impact on this community after his playing days ended. He will be greatly missed." Much more on Lassiter. Producer Jim O'Mahundra and the entire Cardinals broadcasting department been working all day long, and the Big Red Vault is definitely going to be opened a little bit later on here on this Monday afternoon. But right now, let's take off and let you know what's ahead on this Monday afternoon. We'll talk about the head coaching search and the latest as far as what we know right now, because it does change sometimes by the minute. And in Cliff Kingsbury, his name has resurfaced. The Cardinals may be in line for 3 additional draft picks. We'll explain that. Plus, as we already mentioned, we'll remember Kwamie Lassiter, the player on the field and the man off the field. And, of course, your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2. That a little bit later on here on this Monday. But first, the news of the day. And it was 1 week ago today that the Cardinals relieved Steve Wilkes of his duties as head coach. So we are now into week 2 on the coaching search. And here is what we know right now. 4 candidates have reportedly interviewed for the job. Former Dolphins head coach Adam Gase and former Colts and Lions head coach Jim Caldwell were the first 2. The third, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, was Saints assistant head coach and tight ends coach Dan Campbell. He interviewed on Saturday. Also over the weekend, the Cardinals interviewed Rams quarterbacks coach Zach Taylor, according to John Gambadoro of 98.7 FM Arizona sports station. So those 4 right now we know of. There are certainly other candidates that have been attached to this Cardinals opening, but 4, according to reports, that have spoken to the Cardinals about the job.
Yeah, and, you know, the latest this afternoon is, you know, Kingsbury is interviewing with the New York Jets. The Jets obviously doing a thorough search. I still think Mike McCarthy could be an option there, considering where the airport's at, and he wants to spend time with his family. He's in a second marriage, and they have some kids in high school. So Kingsbury's a hot name, and the fact that we're starting to see these air raid quarterbacks be successful in the NFL. Well, he ran an air raid offense with Patrick Mahomes and another guy, Baker Mayfield. So definitely an innovative offensive mind. He's very intriguing. He doesn't have head coaching NFL experience, but he's coached in college, I want to say 6 years, and he's called plays, so you can check those boxes, and he's very innovative when it comes to play calling. So very intrigued with a guy like Cliff Kingsbury. Now, in the perfect scenario, the next head coach the Cardinals hire, you hope he's here for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Now, that means you have to win, and that means you have to develop, and you got to coach and teach these players, and that means you got to hire a good staff. Now, Jim Caldwell, to me, checks a lot of good boxes from the simple fact of former head coach in a couple different stints. His Lions team was 9-7. He made the playoffs, took a step back this year with the first-year head coach, Matt Patricia. He's worked with quarterbacks. He's called plays as a head coach. The only thing is, though, and I don't want to discriminate, but he is 63 years old. Now, Bruce Arians is a little bit older and may get another opportunity. We know that some of these, Pete Carroll, all the energy in the world, he's 66 or 67. He just got a 2-year extension. So Caldwell, to me, is intriguing. Now, according to reports, or at least rumors, and that is he wants to be a head coach. He's a guy that can pick and choose where he wants to go. I don't know if he wants to be a coordinator. So obviously, if he's not a head coach, your first thought is this guy's worked with quarterbacks. He can develop quarterbacks, and he can call plays. So that's very intriguing there. Zach Taylor, again, just comes from the Rams, mojo of offense. You're obviously going to have to hire him as a head coach. What kind of coordinators could he bring in here? So
some experience on that
experience.
Staff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And according to Sean McVay last week, he said that at this point in time we would like to keep him, so we'll find a role for him. So you just can't come in and try to make him an OC. Dan Campbell, I'm very intrigued with him. Comes from the Bill Parcells coaching. He was an interim coach in Miami for about 7 or 8 games. He's the assistant head coach. He also is the tight ends coach with the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, they're playing this weekend. Cardinals got a chance to interview him over the weekend. And so I like the candidates, and if you notice, they're all geared towards offense.
Yeah, and you brought up Kingsbury, and this is an interesting one because we discussed him a lot on Friday on just the number of quarterbacks that he has worked with, the offense, the defense, a little bit left to be desired as far as what he did or maybe didn't do at Texas Tech. But the latest concerning Kingsbury, because after we spoke on Friday, the reports on Saturday, Schefter reported that USC was denying teams permission to interview Kingsbury. A little bit later on, speculation surfaced that Kingsbury, because he was being denied, would just simply quit. He would resign his post as USC offensive coordinator and just look at the NFL. Pro Football Talk reported that there is a very low buyout in Kingsbury's contract with USC. Then, about a couple of hours earlier here on this Monday, Fox's Jay Glazer now reporting, quote, that Kingsbury is interviewing with NFL teams, which likely means he has resigned as USC offensive coordinator, unquote. Adam Schefter followed that up with, quote, the Arizona Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury were said to have a strong mutual interest in each other per league sources, unquote. Albert Breer of SI.com, quote, the Cardinals are seriously considering Cliff Kingsbury for their vacant head coaching position. One more, Ian Rappaport of NFL Network tweeted, Kingsbury is, quote, still employed by USC per team official, unquote. So perhaps USC has backtracked on them denying permission. And then you brought up Bruce Feldman's report with the Atlantic and Fox Sports that he is speaking today with the Jets and perhaps maybe later this week an opportunity to speak with the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, we just need a couple dominoes to fall. and I think once you go through the first wave of candidates, and then you'll bring them in for second interviews depending on if their team is still playing or not. And then you obviously, any new head coach or any previous experience, you want to put your staff together. So, but I do think, depending on what happens with Bruce Arians, the Browns, it seems like they may not even, they're going to do a couple second interviews. The Jets have already, I think everyone's done their due diligence. So I think once you get a couple off the board, then I think things will start
the pool starts to get a little bit smaller.
Yeah, and then you can start to figure out, who's still left and what other teams are looking for a certain certain style of a coaching staff or head coach. And I think in this case, we know what the Cardinals are thinking.
Of course, this is certainly the number 1 and number 2, 3, 4, 5 topic as far as the Cardinals, because it is the first thing that this team needs to address here this offseason. But as we know, when it happens is, well, that is still left to be decided, but we do know that it is something that the Cardinals would like to do sooner rather than later. Although, as remember, team president Michael Bidwell, when he announced on December 31st that Steve Wilkes was no longer to be the head coach, there would be no timetable on this coaching search.
I think one of the things that we want to maybe do a little bit differently around this process is maybe keep our cards a little closer to our vest. It's a competitive process. There's 7 other openings out there. We want to make sure that we get the best coach to take us into the future, get us back to where we should be.
In other words, stay tuned, and we'll cover it for you here on Cards Cover 2 as we broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, and doing so, of course, in our Bose QC35s. Now, Bruce Arians' name has been mentioned, and the former Cardinals head coach quite possibly could be back in the NFL. He interviewed with Tampa Bay on Saturday, and according to reports, is labeled as the front runner and perhaps maybe announced as early as Tuesday. And we know the situation in Tampa Bay. He's worked with general manager Jason Light when Light was here with the Cardinals as the director or the vice president of player personnel, and then he goes way back with quarterback Jameis Winston when Winston was a kid and part of those football camps in Alabama. It certainly sounds like everything is leaning towards Arians being back in the NFL, but just not on a Cardinals sideline, and that's certainly left a lot of debate and discussion as far as, well, if he's going to coach, why not coach the Cardinals? And if he is going to coach, he was, or at least reportedly, under contract, and now what happens as far as what happens next on whether the Cardinals should receive any compensation.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go back to Bruce Arians' press conference when he announced his retirement, the way he, spoke to the team after the Seahawks game. This guy, I mean, there's a lot of stress being a head coach in the NFL, and whether it was, he mentioned a few times he's added some weight, and we know he was dealing with some health issues, and so, he looked bloated to me, and he was so red, and I think just because he was so emotional, but. Obviously, he wanted to recharge his batteries. He's a lifer. He wants to coach, and he lives in Atlanta at his forever home. Quick flight to Tampa. They need to make a splash. Obviously, Dirk Cutter didn't pan out. The last 2 head coaches they had there were Lovie Smith and Dirk Cutter. So he'll come in there, and obviously he's a big fan of Jameis Winston. He's as you maintain, going back to football camps when he was younger. So. Knows Jason Light. The roster, I think Brinson Buckner did a really good job. The former D-line coach with the Cardinals a couple of years ago under Arians, that they were much better this year, their D-line under Brinson Buckner. Now it's a matter of, does he try to bring Todd Bowles there? He's obviously really close to Chuck Pagano. Byron Leftwich, we know that he obviously, B.A. was the one that got him into football. He just got off the golf course and he called him. You look at some of the other guys, Larry Foote, Larry Foote obviously is a guy the Cardinals, I think, look in the future as, a guy that can be a coordinator but really can relate to these players, especially he's not too far removed. So it'd be interesting with the staff that he would try to hire. I think Harold Goodwin, who's out of football this year, would be an option for the offensive line coach. We know Arians is going to call plays, so it'd be interesting to see, how many former Cardinal coaches would be on that staff.
His press conference, Arians, at least to me, was very genuine. And at the time, I believe he thought he was done coaching. If he is coming back, it's a signal perhaps that maybe a year away, it's tough to stay away. Maybe the broadcasting gig with CBS wasn't enough of an itch to scratch, and he wants to get back in. So I don't have a problem with him coming back, and I understand that there is a segment of the fan base that does, because as you've seen last year, the Cardinals fans would love to see B.A. back on the sidelines. But let's not forget, his final 2 seasons, there were several, including that called on Cardinal Talk, and we took those phone calls, MJ. They were ready for B.A. to leave.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were that, followed the team. You got to give him a ton of credit what he did those first 3 years. Now, obviously, injuries and but the team played hard for him. He had a really good staff, so I'll give him credit. I think he didn't want to be too far removed from football, and even though you fly in on a Friday, meet with the home team, and then Saturday you go to the team hotel and you meet with the visiting team, it still allowed him to prep during the week. They sent him all the information. I don't think he was great because it was a 3-man booth. We know how colorful he can be, how edgy and swag. I didn't think that.
I think he was limited.
Yeah, he was. In Trent Green, you get a former quarterback, and then Greg Gumbel, he's one of the best when it comes to play-by-play. It just seemed like he wasn't able to talk as much. So there's nothing like being on the sidelines, and he'll tell you that. And he loves the preparation. He loves the process, and he loves coaching on Sunday. He likes. But the last couple of years here, I think teams figured out, take away the Cardinals' deep ball. That's why you look at John Brown and how disappointing he was here, and then J.J. Nelson the last couple of years. Teams caught up to it, and the Cardinals quarterbacks were hit 250 times, not sacks, hits, and that was Stanton, Gabbert, and he throwing Carson Palmer. So, in the ideal situation, they have a really good offensive line. We'll see how they address their running back position because it works throwing the ball down the field, but you have to give your quarterback time to throw it.
Of course, if this does happen, 2019 schedule, we know the opponents. One of the opponents is Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and I believe it's on the road, right?
It is.
And Tampa is eligible for an overseas, or in this case, maybe Mexico or London trip. So Cardinals have already been to London. It'd be great to have the Mexico trip.
With regards to compensation, according to Ian Rappaport, the answer is no. He reported that Arians did retire, but his 2019 team option was declined. Tampa Bay can proceed without any obstacles, unquote. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to advance the story, but I don't know the fine print. I don't know. I know about the option. Didn't know if it was picked up or declined. And Rappaport works for the league office, so I got to think he's accurate. But I think we may hear more about this at some point.
Well, let's advance this story as we speak about compensation, and that is the Cardinals are in line for 3 compensatory picks in April's draft. Overthecap.com is projecting the Cardinals will receive an extra 6th-round pick and 2 in the 7th round. Comp picks, as Darren Urban wrote on azcardinals.com, are potential picks you get based on a formula taking into account the previous year's free agents lost versus free agents signed. So the predictions, and we don't need to get into the formula, but this is the projection is that when the Cardinals lost linebacker Kareem Martin based off his play, Cardinals will get a 6th-round pick. Quarterback Drew Stanton and wide receiver Jerron Brown. Those losses would net the Cardinals 2 7th-round picks. So you add it all up, 10 projected picks, 3 additional in 2019.
Yeah, no John Brown pick and no was John Brown? Yeah. Jerron Brown, but John Brown, I would have thought and no Blaine Gabbert. They didn't get any points for Blaine Gabbert, and he played this year.
Yeah, and Drew Stanton was basically inactive for much of the season as the 3rd quarterback in line. Yeah,
but they do take in consideration in the equation his salary. Now, like for an example, if the Cardinals didn't release Bradford on a certain date, the Vikings would have got a 3rd-round pick for him because he signed for $15 million.
Yeah, there are much smarter people than either you or myself as far as projecting this. I'm just glad that the Cardinals get additional 3 picks because that's another 3 opportunities for someone to land that you don't have to fight with as far as the undrafted rookie free agent pool.
And you can trade those compensatory
That's right.
picks.
That changed, a couple years back.
Yeah,
so another set.
Ozzie Newsome's had a great career, and his last 1st-round pick is Lamar Jackson, but he has mastered when it comes to compensatory picks. Seattle's done a good job. Belichick's done a good job. The Cardinals, when you lose guys, you get 3rd-round picks. So some teams have really mastered it.
Yeah, nothing official, but at least according to projections, overthecap.com, giving the Cardinals 3 more draft picks in 2019. Real quick, want to congratulate Jake Plummer. The former Cardinals quarterback today was named to the 2019 class of College Football Hall of Fame. 4-year starter at Arizona State. Cardinals drafted him in 1997, had a great career at both ASU and with the Cardinals. So congratulations to Plummer as far as getting into the College Football Hall of Fame.
He was fun to watch, both college and pro.
Absolutely. Of course, losing the Rose Bowl to Ohio State, but certainly put that Arizona State Sun Devil team on the map. prior to joining the Arizona Cardinals. We also talked about Wild Card Weekend, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday, and we briefly touched on this on Friday. And I'll admit I was flat out wrong. The surprise over the weekend is that only one home team won, and it was the one home team that I had thought would lose, and that was the Dallas Cowboys. But Seattle just could not do anything running the football, and they fall to the Dallas Cowboys by the score of 24-22. The Seahawks held to just 73 rushing yards.
Yeah, and that, going into at least the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, they were able to run the football. Russell Wilson was able to extend plays. Tyler Lockett still had some splash plays in that game, but when Dak Prescott is not a game manager, and even though Amari Cooper didn't do a ton, Zeke Elliott, he really carries that offense, and now they're throwing the ball to him out of the backfield. So, I give him a chance against the Rams coming up this weekend.
It is in L.A., and of course the Rams.
So the Cowboys will have 30,000 fans there.
Yeah, that is true. How much of a home field advantage is it going to be? It might not.
Well, LA's they're like rooting for winners.
One thing it was the Chargers.
I would think you'll have 60-40 crowd, but I do think LA will come out. I haven't looked at the weather at all, but Dallas fans they're everywhere. Anytime they're on TV or playing close to you, everyone's watching.
Yeah, Cowboys at the LA Rams on Saturday. The other team in the NFC advancing, the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions, still alive as they won in Chicago 16-15. Of course, it was a field goal near the end of the ball game that hit the upright, then the crossbar that would have won it for Chicago. Instead, the Eagles advanced, and the magic of Nick Foles continues.
Man, this guy plays well under pressure, and they got some weapons. They don't have a great running game.
You mentioned, let me interrupt there, the pressure. Is there really pressure? Because I've heard this, and I don't know if I'm completely on board. He's not the starter. He's the backup. So really, how much pressure is there for him to succeed when anything that he does is a bonus?
I just think playing quarterback in the NFL is pressure.
Yes.
Tom Brady, he talks about pressure. Carson Palmer, there's pressure. You either got all the blame or you get all the credit. Same with the head coach. I just think they've clearly come out, at least said Carson Wentz is our future. Younger. Foles, the way he plays down the stretch and based on the body of work in the last 2 years, he's going to make a lot of money. Everyone's wondering where Joe Flacco's going to end up, and right now he's under contract, so there's a market out there for him. And then you throw in a couple other quarterbacks. I would throw Teddy Bridgewater in there, but I think when you look at it from that standpoint, Nick Foles, he's going to get paid. So I just think it's pressure because this team went to the Super Bowl last year, and I don't like their chances going to New Orleans.
Well, the first time that those two teams met earlier this season, it was all Saints. 48-7 in Week 7. Eagles and Saints, that game on Sunday. Out of the AFC, the Chargers won in Baltimore 23-17. It was 23-3 with about 9 minutes to go in the ball game. And Lamar Jackson twice threw touchdown passes to Michael Crabtree to make it a little bit closer. But the storyline here coming out of Baltimore is Jackson was booed.
I think the team was booed too.
There were people chanting for Flacco.
Yeah.
That's what upset Ravens players on the sidelines. And to a certain extent, I understand. But considering how well Jackson had played to get them into the postseason, you talk about fickle fans. That's exhibit right there at number A.
I understand that, but I think they're also booing John Harbaugh because they're like, when you're down 23-9. Lamar Jackson's not going to be able to bring you back in that game. Now, granted, he did. Maybe they played prevent defense, keep everything in front of you. At least with Joe Flacco, he can throw the ball down the field. Now, Harbaugh came out in his press conference today, said that there's going to be a huge market out there for Joe Flacco, but our future is Lamar Jackson. So, maybe if he was coaching for his career there, maybe he goes to Joe Flacco. But they've already negotiated a new contract. Now it's just a matter of him signing it. So you talk about pressure. If he felt like I got to win this game to secure, I think Jason Garrett had to win that game.
Yeah, there was talk that if he didn't win, that there might be another opening in the NFL.
Yeah, and who knows how that would have happened. But yeah, the pressure is definitely there. But I think the fan base was upset because they didn't even consider putting Flacco in the game.
Of course, up next for the Chargers at New England
Good luck
on Sunday, and the early weather forecast 3 to 5 inches of snow at Foxborough on Sunday.
They just get all the luck.
The first game on Wild Card Weekend, really a laugher. The Colts won in Houston 21-7. It was 21-0 before halftime. Andrew Luck and that Colts offense made it look easy at times.
And they don't. And their defense, they ran for over 200 yards, but their defense, they made Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson look average.
Well, and Watson's been hit all season long.
I know.
62 times.
Starting to wonder about him now in the future.
In the regular season, he was dropped 3 times on Saturday afternoon, another 8 times. And now for Indianapolis, they'll play at Kansas City that game on Saturday.
Yeah, I would not count out the Colts. They got a really good offensive line. We know Luck's not going to make a lot of mistakes. They got a running game and Max in there. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because I think some young quarterbacks, Trubisky, Watson, and then you throw in who's the other quarterback? Mahomes. Curious to see how they play because it's a different animal when you get to the postseason.
And especially if you're playing a team like Kansas City is that's on a roll.
And that's why I give Dak Prescott credit. Hopefully he learned from the last time because they won the division at 13-3 and they got knocked out in the second round, which in their first playoff game.
Yeah, because you had the first round bye.
I give Dak. I mean, the fact that going into that game, I'll take Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. That's even though they don't play against each other, so to speak. But I thought Seattle was going to be one team that was able to pull off the upset.
Yeah, talk about a hot team going into the playoffs. That's just completely opposite of what I had just said. But certainly the playoffs, interesting first weekend. Conference semifinals coming up this weekend. We'll talk about more on those matchups a little bit later on this week here on Cards Cover 2. Right now, as we broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, we have the Bird Gang sound off here on a Monday afternoon. Your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show. And this from Twitter, something we had discussed already, but our loyal follower at Cardinals_31 wants to know, do you think there will be any bad feelings should Bruce Arians become the Bucs head coach, having retired a season ago?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of people rooting for Bruce Arians. I just think it was time for him to go. And, he made a decision that he wants to return to the sidelines. He's a lifer, but again, I think it was time for him to retire in Arizona.
Staying with Twitter, user wants to know, when the Cardinals claim they're going to keep things, quote, close to the vest, what are the benefits, considering that a lot of the news already gets out anyway?
Well, you got to be, worried about agents leaking stuff, and then, sometimes guys are trying to put a staff together, and somebody will call someone and say, hey, he's on the short list in Arizona. This is the way they want to do it. Last time they announced names, and I don't think that does any good. They could have more interviews. We may not even know about it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is about the number of names that don't get talked about.
Yeah, I'm sure they've casted a wide net, maybe 15 to 20 different candidates.
Moving to Instagram, this is right up your alley, MJ. User wants to know, should the Cardinals make a push for Jim Harbaugh?
I mean, the quick answer is yes, but dreaming is free, so I don't think they're going to be able to get him, nor 31 other teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't even know how much interest he has now that Urban Meyer is gone. It might be a little bit smoother sailing for him at Michigan.
I would agree with that.
Cards Cover 2 here on a Monday afternoon as we come to you from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. Appreciate the Bird Gang sounding off here on a Monday. We do it every show using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2. And as we opened up the show, again, the news of the day, at least around the Cardinals family, is the loss and the passing of safety Kwamie Lassiter, who passed away over the weekend at the age of 49. A number of his teammates, a number of his friends went to social media to express their condolences, their beliefs, express their feelings on the loss of Kwamie, including Larry Fitzgerald, who called Lassiter a marvelous human being, inspiring so many people in our community in so many ways with his soul and compassion. Jake Plummer, who was teammates of Lassiter, quote, "I'll miss you dearly." Emmett Smith, who was not a teammate of Lassiter, but certainly matched up with him several times throughout their careers, expressed his thoughts and prayers on social media. Marie Tillman, the former wife of Pat Tillman, quote, "Heartbreaking. My thoughts are with his friends and family." Rodney Gunter, current Arizona Cardinal, who actually used Kwamie Lassiter's foundation for his My Cause, My Cleats this year. Gunter on Twitter, quote, "As an alum, he set a great example for his current players on how to be better in the community. R.I.P. And Bertram Berry, devastated to hear my brother's time on this earth coming to an end." So a number of people reaching out on social media, and we here on Cards Cover 2 have reached out to someone that is in our very own building and a former teammate of Kwamie Lassiter, Anthony Edwards, the Cardinals Senior Director of Player Development, joining us here on Cards Cover 2. Appreciate a couple of minutes, and I know this has not been easy for you these last 24 hours.
Right. Very tough loss for the Cardinal organization as well as the Lassiter family. To Erica, our thoughts and our prayers go out to the family during this dark time of bereavement. An unbelievable player, an unbelievable giver into the community, unbelievable golfer as well. I played with him quite often. But just just unbelievable individual in general, and just always loved serving and giving back. Hard worker, very talented safety that came in undrafted, real skinny like I was. But I tell you what, when he got on the field, he performed.
You know, you look at his career, and I'm glad you mentioned the undrafted status, because anytime you talk to Kwamie, he always had a smile on his face. He's always willing to help people, and I'll never forget that Chargers game when he had those 4 interceptions that propelled his team to go to Dallas and knock off the Cowboys. But, I mean, I don't know if people appreciate how good of a teammate he was and a player on the field.
A great leader.
Yep.
And you remember Pat Tillman came in and actually took his job, and he still worked with him, and I believe Pat got injured, and Kwamie stepped in.
True.
He was just an awesome player and an awesome leader. He had true character that you want for a leader of a defense, and as well as it's just unbelievable what he's done off the field too, and his wife in serving the community and whatever they found their hands to do to help out and to assist others. They were always thinking about others as well, and so just so much prayer for the family during this time of bereavement.
As a player first, because I do want to touch on what he did and what he established off the field, but you overlapped with him for 3 seasons, his first 3 seasons, and as an undrafted free agent, that's tough not only to get into the NFL, but make it and then play 8 seasons with the Cardinals and 10 overall in the NFL. But did you, if you remember that first time that you met him or saw him on the field, that first season or maybe those first couple of games, did anything stand out that, you know what, maybe this is the rare exception, those rare breeds that is able to come in and make it even though they went undrafted?
We always are looking for to make an impact, especially as an undrafted individual as well as I was as well. But one thing I remember, 1995 preseason game, Houston Oilers. Kwamie had an unbelievable game, blitzing, sacking the quarterback, making some big hits, and he was not a big guy. He was slender, but when he hit you, he hit you. And so I remember that game. That game just stands out above all of them, other than the Chargers game when we went into the playoffs.
It's a great segue. You mentioned the hitting. How about we flash you back? 2001 against Oakland. Lassiter wired for sound.
Feel pretty good. I feel like it's going to be a big day for the Cardinals. Who? You better get it together. Hostile atmosphere. It's the best time to play. They just regular old fans cheering for their home team. We'll do our best to shut them up, though. Best feeling in the world. But nobody give us a chance. Hey, we practice together. We know where our heart's at. Let's go out here and destroy them, man. Set the tempo, set the tone. DB's on 3. 1, 2, 3. DB. I want to talk to you in a little while. Houston, ride. Woo! Watch yourself, boy. Watch yourself, 86. Watch yourself, 86. Watch yourself. I'm coming to get you.
You can certainly hear the hits, and then you also hear him as well. Big trash talker, it certainly seems like.
He was like that in practice, too. You know, one thing I remember, too, also, because he was a person that always prepared each and every day to be his best. And I remember, and we're going back now to the Wigwam, when we used to have a Cardinals charity out at the Wigwam back in the days. And Kwamie could not hit that golf ball. He struggled. However, when you have a zeal that you want to strive to do better or to get better or become better, you work on that craft. Just like he did as a safety, he worked on his craft. Just as he did with his golf game, he worked on his craft. And I tell you what, you talking about a great hitter hitting a golf ball, awesome hitter. But he always worked to get better. Always worked to get better, not only for himself, but all those that are around him as well. He wanted everyone to do their best, to be their best. And I always say, good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. We're always striving to be better, regardless of what others may say outside the room. We inside this room got to get better and do better each and every day.
What was he like on the golf course?
Oh, now he's serious now. Now, after he perfected his game, serious look, serious face. There wasn't too much smiling there until after he got you. Of course, he beat you. And, I mean, we won a couple of tournaments, actually, with him as well. And I know he won a couple of our Cardinals charity tournaments as well. And so, but unbelievable golfer.
He dabbled in a little radio.
Yes, he did.
Podcasting.
For our games and things like that. And, I mean, just kept him close around the game. He's always stayed close with the Cardinals. Always seen him around the building and things like that. And so, you know, those are kind of people that, you know, I always tell people, you want to impact to imprint. You're going to be so impactful that you leave an imprint, that when you're gone, they're going to remember you. Mm-hmm. And I always say, even in death, I know it's a sad time, it's a tough time, but even in death, it's not a period, it's a comma. For life continue on through us, Coach. We remember the smile. We remember those things he said. And now we carry that with us.
Lassiter's final season with the Cardinals, he was actually the first player host of the Big Red Rage in 2002. In fact, he returned to the show leading up to the 2015 NFC Championship game, the biggest Big Red Rage it was called, and Lassiter took to the stage to address the fans during a commercial break.
All right, Bird Gang, please welcome to the stage at this time the very first ever player host of the Big Red Rage. That's right. All the way back in 2002, former Cardinals free safety number 42, Kwamie Lassiter.
That's right, that's right. That's right, first host of the Big Red Rage. Since we gonna do some cheering, some chanting, but I need a slow Arizona. Here we go. It's gonna sound like this. When I say Arizona, you say Cardinals. Can you do that? Arizona! 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 Let me say this, man. This is a great atmosphere. I appreciate you guys coming out. When we do, they doing big things on the football field. This is what I'm talking about. You have to show your support. And don't forget about when they take off Saturday, we all gonna be at the airport. Let's be there to send them off. And when they come back, let's be there to greet them, and then we'll take it to San Fran. You with me on that? They said I got 3 minutes. I'm gonna take as long as I want to. On behalf of all the alumni, the Arizona Cardinals, I appreciate this fan base. I appreciate what you guys have always been there, even in Sun Devil Stadium, and now we at University of Phoenix Stadium, and these guys are balling. So I appreciate everything you, Big Red Rage, Red Sea. Y'all got to keep it going for us because we taking it from Carolina back to Santa Clara. We going to the Super Bowl.
Couple things there as we're speaking with Anthony Edwards here on Cards Cover 2. Is one, he is always smiling. Not sure if he ever had a bad day in his life, and then two, the appreciation of the fans. And some guys it's lip service because that's what they have to say, but you could just see and hear it in his voice, just the genuine affection that he had for those supporting him as a player.
Right. Die-hard fan for the Cardinals. He could have moved away. He stayed here the whole time. I know he left and played, a year with the Rams, a year with the Chargers, but he stayed here. And I believe that he loved the Cardinals, and that's why he gave so much support towards the organization outside of serving, even after he retired, yet and still he stayed right here in the Valley. And so that just shows the loyalty that he had towards the team as well, and for the Bidwell family.
The imprint that you talk about on the community, the Kwamie Lassiter Foundation, I want to give a shout out to them because it does great things for children, especially sickle cell. And we saw what Rodney Gunter did with his My Cause, My Cleats. But that just seemed like you talked about the giving aspect and just not relishing retirement, but doing something with his name, whether lending time or even money as well. And that's not always easy to do, even after you've played.
That goes a long ways, but it speaks volume towards the character of the individual too, as well, because they're not just thinking of themselves, but they're thinking of others, thinking about our community, thinking about our state, and it speaks volume to the individual's character in their thought process and how they even live their life. It's not about him, and it wasn't about Erica, but it was about what can we do for our community? What can we do for others? And that's called servanthood. And you have to be an humble person to serve. And they've done that, and they've been doing it for years, even when they were playing. The different things that we have from the Teddy Bear Express at the hospitals, you know, the can drives that we have before the games. Erica was there involved with my wife and the other wives, as well as the players, and doing the different caravans that we used to do back in the days as well.
For those not familiar with Kwamie Lassiter, either the player or the person, what would you want them in your dealings with him, both as a player and then post his playing days, want to remember or want to know?
Smile, enjoy life, and be your very best at whatever you do. Be your best. And everything else will speak for itself.
Well said.
He certainly left a lasting impression both on and off the field. And with that, we'll leave you here on this Monday afternoon. Special thanks to everyone involved behind the scenes on this show. Tim Delaney, Jim Alejandro, Devin Henry, and Brandon Nadas. For Anthony Edwards, appreciate you stepping in here on a very difficult day. My partner, Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. And as we leave you here on this Monday, much more on Kwamie Lassiter, a video tribute. And among the voices you'll hear, one of Lassiter's former teammates, Pat Tillman. This has been Cards Cover 2.
No, baby, not this side.
Leadership means, you know, guys see you as this, and it's all positive. You're helping others out. Regardless of who you are, who you think you are, people are always watching you. So you just do the right things in your household, the public, and as far as your team. And, you know, guys will follow you.
He's a warrior, man. I mean, he's fought, he's earned his keep around here. I mean, he wasn't given anything, and he's kind of taken, he's taken what he's got, and he's earned every bit of it.